discussing some definitions and also some brief history of game theory. Theory is defined as a model of optimality, taking into consideration not only benefits, less cost, but also the interaction with participants. Just a little bit of history. Pierre de Fermat and Blaise Pascal are associated with beginning probability calculus, which is an important factor to game theory. Also in the 1600s, James Waldegrave provided the first known mixed strategy solution of a matrix game. And then many years down the road, between 1921 and 1927, Emile Borel was the first who attempted to mathematicize the game of strategy by publishing a series of notes. In 1928, John von Neumann proved the existence of the solution of any finite two-player zero-sum game in mixed strategies. This led to his theory of games and economic behavior that he wrote along with Oscar Morgenstern. This book is considered the beginning of the existence of game theory as a fully fledged mathematical discipline. And since game theory can be applied to other subjects such as political science and biology and even sociology, beginning in the 1950s, many articles have been published focusing in political science and also biology. For example, in 1953, Lloyd Shapley used game theory to determine the power of the members of the United Nations Security Council. However, long before any of this, game theory while it wasn't proved, it did occur to some military leaders and influenced their strategies now that we look back, now that we know what game theory is. And an example of this is the Spanish conqueror Cortez. And when he landed in Mexico with a small force, who could have been easily captured, he removed the risk that his troops would retreat by actually burning the ships. So without the possibility of being able to retreat, the Spanish soldiers had to fight and to stand, otherwise they would have been killed. Cortez, of course, then they beat the Aztecs, and he reasoned that any commander who could be so confident as to willfully destroy his own option to be prudent if the battle went badly for him must have good reasons for such extreme optimism. It cannot be wise to attack an opponent who has a good reason for being sure that he can't lose. The Aztecs then retreated into the surrounding hills, and Cortez had his victory bloodlessly. Now we're moving on to some elements of a game. Within a game, there are players or participants, and this can be an organization, it can be an individual person, it can be groups. There are also moves or choices that each player and participant has, and there are outcomes from these moves and choices. From those outcomes come a payoff, and that's what we will be focusing on during the next couple slides. So, outcomes. A win-win is an approach to negotiation in which parties secure an outcome that will leave all with a desirable result. In essence, it means that each of the players will be smiling. A win-lose uh, means that while one player or one participant comes with a positive outcome, another player leaves with a negative outcome. And finally, in this slideshow, we'll show a lose-lose, which is a no-win situation where a person has choices but no choice leads to a gain, or where the choices will leave you crying. So now we're going to move on to our first example. Let's look at another example. This will be the game of chicken, or the chicken game. And we all know this. We played this in the pool as kids, and we also see it on movies. So, example. Here's a couple. Basically, the chicken game is two people, either airplanes or cars, are coming at each other. Now, each participant has a few options here. They could swerve, they could go onto a head-on collision, or one could swerve, both could swerve, and as we can see in the second clip, one person leaves the car, but the other one is unfortunately stuck in the car, and he is not able to get out, so therefore he falls off the cliff. Now, these lead to some different outcomes. So let's look at a payoff box. And as you can see, there are two participants. There's a red person and a blue person. Well, if both the blue person and the red person swerve, then they don't really get anywhere. They both get a gain because nothing happens to either one of them, but neither one of them lose. So let's say that blue person goes straight but red person swerves. Well, that means that blue person wins because he didn't end up swerving, yet the red person did. And vice versa, let's say red person swerves but blue person drives straight. Then the red person would win that one. Well, so let's say they both drive straight. Well, that doesn't end up very well for either of them, so that means that would be a lose-lose situation. So again, we have a win-win situation in that they both swerve. We could have a win-lose situation depending on whether it's the blue person or the red person who has gone straight or swerved. And if they both drive straight, then that would be a lose-lose situation. Let's say there are two people who rob a bank, and the police end up catching them and put both suspects in separate interrogation rooms. Now, if both suspects end up speaking, then they will each serve in jail and get a sentence. However, if both suspects stay silent, then they would probably get a lesser sentence than if they had both talked. There is one more situation. And in this case, the person who stays silent gets the heavier sentence than the one who talks, who will get a lighter sentence. And this is because the person who talks will probably be blaming the person who stays silent. The person who stays silent will not be blaming the other person, and therefore would receive the heavier sentence. So in this situation, it would be better if both suspects stayed silent. However, because the other might not be able to trust the other suspect, both of them would probably end up speaking.
Got